What's up, everybody? Rich Slayton here, back with more of the DEDsafio Royale competition, part 2 of our quarterfinals. This brilliant event that was filmed live at Dreamhack in Spain. And of course, I said in the last video, this was streamed on Twitch exclusively, so I'm here bringing it to you for the YouTube viewers. If you want to catch up with one of the coolest in-person events, I think only one of 3 in-person events of the year. We had the first Dreamhack, and then of course CRO World Finals, and then this Dreamhack event as well. And of course, as with all of our big events, big money on the line, 15,000 euros for this competition, with 6K going to the player who wins in first place. It's a blast of a tournament. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket. Yesterday, last time you guys saw a video in our part 1, we saw Morten beat Felipe, and then Lucas come out on top and Bale in this final single elimination portion of the bracket. Today, we're going to see Surgical Goblin against Vitor and Ruben against Wallace. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun here for all of us as we watch it. Of course, if you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like this video, everything. We're going to have semifinals coming up here next after this video, and then, of course, the grand finals as the final piece of this whole pie. So I hope you enjoy all this great Clash Royale competitive action. Let's go ahead and check in with our competitors. Our first match is going to be 2 close friends. They've become very close the last couple of years. Vitor75 out of Portugal, rocking the official CRL sweatshirt. I think that was the one from making World Finals in 2021. And then on the other side of things, we'll get the camera moving over there in just a moment, I believe. You'll see his opponent, the legend himself, one of the all-time greats in his good friend, Surgical Goblin. And here we go. Actually, we're going right into gameplay. There you go. Vitor at the top of your screen, Surgical Goblin at the bottom. Reminder, this is duel mode, so they are not allowed to repeat any decks throughout this. I'm going to go ahead and just get us into the non-music version of all this. And wow, Graveyard Skeleton King push right to open up by Vitor. Very aggressive. Snowball gets on the Goblins, and that's going to be a ton of damage right out the gate. NATO to clean up, but damage done. Skeleton King ability in, and that is about 2,000 plus HP of damage, and that was the response Vitor made to seeing that pump go down. Looking like it might be a little Elixir Golem here for Surgical Goblin. Back to a second pump. That's the right call for Vitor. 6 Elixir spent to bank for more Elixir. Goes ahead, Vitor says, all right, I'm going to drop 9 right at the bridge. And now the mirror down too. So Surgical Goblin, one of the all-time greats. If you know, top 3 GOATs of this game, Surgical Goblin definitely belongs on that list. Going cheesy here in the opening game. Got the bird, got the pump, got the mirror, and my guess is a big pile of pink goo in here as well. We'll see if that's the direction he's going in the end. Giant skeleton down for Vitor as he arrows the right-hand side, get a little bit off of that pump. And these pumps, no big spell here. Keep in mind, the biggest spell Vitor has is that set of arrows. So Surgical Goblin can kind of pump with impunity here. The real question is, can Vitor win this one before those pumps make it impossible? And with 3 pumps down already, Surgical Goblin has a lot of elixir, but of course, there's a ton of damage done down to 205 on that left-hand lane. So this is kind of an interesting situation that Vitor and Surge both find themselves in. And Vitor just going to continue trying to chip away at that left-hand tower. He knows he can spell it out. This should be a win for the Portuguese pro, and it's Electro Giant to the opposite lane. So he's going to have to defend a monster of a push. He has to get that tower down, 50 seconds left, and now you have Electro Giant plus 2 birds behind it. Phoenix, Bomber at the back end, Heal Spirit to help all that stuff, and now Electro Giant in the left-hand lane as well. So this is just an absolute onslaught. I'm not sure Vitor can defend all this. This is going to be a lot for him to stand up against as another mirrored Phoenix goes into that left-hand lane. E-Giant going to get on tower, do a little bit of damage. This Giant Skeleton is going to actually be critical here. I think the E-Spirit, yeah, does get back to the Phoenixes. Bomb explodes, but Phoenix tanking for an egg here. Can one of these eggs pop? No, what a great Skeleton King and a brilliant pull. No, the NATO from Surgical Goblin. That looked like a brilliant pull against the Fisherman. Can the E-Giant do enough in time? and I don't think it can. No, it does not. You see the look on Vitor's face. He knows how close that was. That was about to turn into a real problem for Vitor, but he does hold off just enough, and you see him going now to consult with Jebas. Ooh, boy, he needs to get some of those decks picked and ready after that really close game number 1. And Surgical Goblin, I don't know if he's working with anybody for this one. He has worked with Julesy on occasion, I think. I could be wrong in some of these events. But I don't know if he's doing that this time around. I could be speaking wrong, too. I could be totally incorrect on that one. You see, he is working on 2 phones, so he's communicating with somebody about his deck picks for game number 2. And, of course, on the side of... Let's go ahead and switch the music back on here. On the side of Vitor, of course, having Jebas in his corner, certainly going to make anybody happy. When you're talking about who do you really want there, well, yeah, that's the guy who just won the World Championship alongside Mohamed Light. Certainly one person you do want in your corner. You know, one thing we've seen from Vitor, talking about stage nerves, he's gotten so much better playing in these big events. I think he's really done a lot to calm his nerves. Obviously, Surgical Goblin has played on stage more than just about anybody. Definitely up there with pretty much anyone on total time spent on stage. And here we go into game number 2. Advantage Vitor. NATO out for Surge, so expect, and it might be Mortar Miner. Exactly. I'd say probably some sort of Miner deck. Hog decks both get buffed when the NATO's out. And Surge ready for that Mortar right at the bridge with the Royal Giant in response. So most likely a Mortar Miner deck here. I think that probably going to be running the not yet nerfed Mighty Miner for Vitor. Although he could be running... He's not going to be running AQ here because he has the Musketeer. Mighty Miner for Surge alongside his Royal Giant. Very quick cycle Royal Giant deck here for the Dutchman. Already we can see gets around at the very minimum. Going to take 8 to get around at the moment. We'll see if there's a 3-cost card in there and lower that down to 7. But Log, Skeletons, E-Spirit. The 3-card cycle when this Mighty Miner is down is going to be really brutal for Vitor to keep up with. And there you go. So now, even without the Mighty Miner, 7 cards to get around with a 3-card cycle for RGs in triple Elixir with the Mighty Miner down. Going to beat a lot of RGs if we do go to triple. And with this Mortar Miner deck, that feels ever more likely that we'll get there. So I'm going to say advantage. Often, Mortar has been advantage to the Mortar player in Royal Giant in the past, not so much anymore. And after this, Mighty Miner just wrecks that tower on the right-hand side. 732. Probably put this one in the books for Surgical Goblin. We're going to game number 3. More likely than not. You see Vitor taking a big sigh, a big breath. And you can see his fingers kind of like just, he's playing with his cards right now. I'm sure some of you at home have done the same thing. He's certainly not feeling the mojo right now. Probably Lightning in this deck for Surgical Goblin. Could be running Fireball, but more likely Lightning. The Mortar to the left-hand lane here. Going to be controlled by the Royal Giant and the RG. Not going to get a shot, though. Mighty Miner does its job well. Hunter to pick up the Mortar on the left-hand side. Now it's a Miner plus Mighty Miner push. Surgical Goblin ahead of that one with the Skeletons, though, and gets a Mighty Miner down of his own. So here we go. Final 40 seconds of regulation, and this is pretty much the story. 674 to basically nothing in the opposite direction. You see Surgical Goblin, of course, rocking the Team Liquid jersey. And little sound challenges here, folks. I think they'll get that one fixed in just a moment. Down to 357, so not very far away. Vitor valiantly playing this one out, but it does feel like this is going to be a GG, a well played, and a thumbs up out of Surgical Goblin with 357 on that right-hand tower. Musketeer played to the left-hand lane. Going to try to YOLO here on this left-hand side, but Log plus Lightning will do it. And there we are. Going to game number 3, folks. Surgical Goblin not able to hold up. Or Surgical Goblin not able, Vitor not able to hold up against the onslaught. And notice this, I've actually never noticed that before. Look at the jersey of Surgical Goblin with the gold star, FIFA style, above the Team Liquid jersey. So there's a World Championship star on top of that logo. I have never seen that before in Clash Royale. That is very, very cool. A nice touch. Just the little things when you get into the high-level merch. Team Liquid, of course, always has the good stuff going on, but that is a really neat touch. And, of course, that's that 2019 World Championship, won alongside Canario, Diego B, and Igor. And a very, very legendary matchup. We'll see if Surge can get past Vitor here and maybe set up a rematch with his former rival in Morten. My guess is that that'll be a tough road to handle. Thinking about the decks played so far, Vitor with Mortar Miner, played the Skeleton King already and played the Mighty Miner. Mighty Miner out on both sides for this one as well. NATO gone for Surgical Goblin. We already saw Vitor play Miner. Could he go back to Hog here? No real building play from Surgical Goblin yet. So all the buildings available does make some of the choices for Vitor a little more complex here. Hog EQ, though, wouldn't be bad if you expect a building. No NATO. Would be kind of a good choice here, potentially, for Vitor. Although I think he already played Log, which would make that harder. He played Snowball, Arrows in game number 1, and of course we'll get a look at the decks here in a moment when we jump back into gameplay. There's a look at the trophy for this event. Live from Dreamhack in Valencia, Spain, the second edition. Here we go. So I guess we're not seeing we're seeing just the previous deck, not the past 2 decks. So Archer Queen, a good choice here for Vitor if he does decide to play it with Lightning out. Knows she's a lot more safe. There's going to be minor wall breakers here for Surgical Goblin. And some variation of bridge spam. Could be either the Ram Rider variant with, you think maybe Golden Knight, but it depends on if Vitor's playing Magic Archer. You can play Archer Queen here instead. Magic Archer's maybe a little more common in bridge spam variations. And Bird behind Mega Knight. And there you go. There's the Archer Queen for Surgical Goblin. Lightning! Oh, boy! And the lightning value is massive as well. So Surgical Goblin gives up a ton of lightning value there. Bird won't respawn. But either way, first damage in, although the Dutchman does have a 3.5 elixir advantage as we go closer to halfway through our opening 3 minutes. Zap plus lightning, interesting, but of course with Snowball, Arrows, and Log all out, you understand some of that. Not Barb Barreling, which I feel like it might be a little more common with bridge spam variations like this one. I know Zap is a long-time bridge spam card, but that's more in the classic P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam. And the Ghost misses. You see, look at Surgical Goblin's face there on the bottom right. He did not like that miss. He was unhappy with the timing there. And now Vitor, there we go, is playing the Archer Queen, and this is really smart with the lightning out. Archer Queen certainly in a lot more safe territory than she might be otherwise. I just realized the music is still playing. Let me clear that music off the board. And so it is Ram spam, and Ram Rider connects with the charge. So 1554, things not going Surge's way here. In game number 3, Bandit takes no shots. And zaps off the bats, forcing Miner out from Surge. The Bandit dash opposite lane. This is where this deck begins to get problematic for Surgical Goblin, right? Lots of dual lane pressure coming in from Vitor. Surge has some similar looks here. But stopping Ram Riders going to be nearly impossible. Mega Knights can help, but Mega Knight now into Mega Knight. Bird up high, Vitor stacking. And look at that, the Ghost of Surgical Goblin, though, on the left-hand lane does a lot of damage. 1355 defensive Miner to pick up the Ghost of Vitor, but this Ram Rider, I don't know what Surgical Goblin does here. He can't get back to his Mega Knight in time. His Ram Rider gets through, but the zap does stop the charge. Look at the left-hand lane now. Miner on the tower, getting that down to 455, so Surge doing a good job, and now Vitor choosing to stack that same lane. Not that big of a difference, and then the Ghost on the right-hand side. So dual lane pressure. He's stacking into the weak side lane here, trying to prevent any push on through, and that Ram Rider's a smart Ram Rider. Really smart Ram Rider. Going to prevent things going the opposite way, and now, Mega Knight on the right-hand side. Surge can't stop it. He knows it. GG, Well played. He goes, gives his buddy a big high five and a hug, and that's going to be the end of that matchup. What a great one there for Surgical Goblin overall. We'll get the music back on here. A great game, but it's Vitor who comes out on top. He made a real effort there, a real solid effort to get to break through on that left-hand side and to get past it. Surge nearly did steal that one, but it was the lane switch by Vitor that was really, really smart, kind of shut things down for a moment there and got him back in the mix. So a very, very smart lane switch by Vitor to go into the weak side. He had similar damage in both lanes, goes into the weak side, makes it harder for Surgical Goblin to play effectively in that lane, gets the dual lane pressure with the Ghost, and then, of course, with the Mega Knight as well, and gets the tower down. So very, very nicely done by Vitor. And he gets himself ever the more closer to that $6,000 grand prize. Let's take a look for one moment at the bracket where they are right now. And as you can see, Vitor moving on, awaiting the winner of our next matchup, which will be Ruben and Wallace coming up next. That's going to be a blast. And, of course, the semifinals, whoever those two are, Morten versus Lucas, and then Vitor versus to be determined. That will be in our next video. But we still have Ruben versus Wallace coming up here in just a couple of moments. And it's been very, very fun so far. Again, I am happy to bring an event like this one to you guys, one that didn't get streamed on YouTube, was a Twitch exclusive for this event, and now we get to do it together here, which is really, really fun for me. So if you do enjoy having this content on YouTube again, before we get into our next matchup, don't forget to like this, to subscribe to the channel, do all that fun stuff. We are on that road to 100,000, around 90,000 right now, so about 10K to go, and hopefully you're going to be a part of making us get that 100,000 overall. And speaking of that, speaking of all the money, not the money that subs, but you know what I mean. Let's go into our second semifinal of the day. Wallace top of your screen, Ruben at the bottom. So going from one former world champion in Surgical Goblin to another, the 2019 world champion with Team Liquid, now to the 2020 world champion as a part of Team Queso in Ruben. And of course, you talk about differences and how those went. Ruben had a big job to do with Team Queso. Really had to carry his squad throughout the regular season. Some of his teammates did step up, especially Kuchi and Benny in the 2v2. They stepped up a lot at Worlds. But Ruben certainly put the team on his back for that one overall. And interesting here, now we're seeing sort of back-to-back. We saw Surgical Goblin go cheesy with the Electro Giant Pump Mirror deck. And now Ruben going to the same pick here with very different results. Royal Giant for Wallace not holding up nicely here, as that is an early tower down to the nod from Ruben. Definitely happy with how this opening moment of this game went. Wallace gonna have to take a moment and reset here after giving up an early tower. He does have about 1,000 HP damage on the right-hand side, but has to break through against this deck. Now, keep in mind, this deck does not run a champion, so no Mighty Miner for Wallace to break through. And as that mirror comes in, you'll see immediate Royal Giant at the bridge. There we go. So the RG should get a few shots here. No, the NATO pulls it back. Does the bird do enough to stop all the shots? Royal Giant gets none. Absolutely none. Wallace does have a good chance for a counter push here. He's going to get one really good look at it. But he's going to have to counter push into the Electro Giant. Swaps lanes with the not yet nerfed Mighty Miner. Keep in mind that the Mighty Miner is getting his speed taken back down to medium from fast, and then a little 5% HP buff. So that'll be coming in our... It might be happening by the time this video comes out. I think it comes out... I think that might be a little bit after it, though. Either way, you're seeing the nasty Miner. 2 Electro Giants down, and this should be it. I don't think Wallace comes back from this one at this point. He can Royal Giant into the right, but he's going to lose these towers. So Ruben with a nasty opening, and Wallace unable to combat that, and the GG well played. And we're going to game number 2 with an easy advantage. Ruben goes and turns to, let's see who he's working with there. Looks like that might be Javi 14. So there you go, formerly of Fnatic, and then, of course, of SK Gaming, fellow Spaniard. Javi also before that for Vivo Keyed. So lots of experience there on the side of Javi. I'm going to go ahead and get us back into the music version of this. And then Jose VTS, Tribe Gaming's Jose working with Wallace. So Jose also recently coming off of a pretty good performance at the Snapdragon Pro Series in North America. I can't remember who he was working with there. It might have been working with Sweep, if I remember correctly. I need to remember who he was working with. But had a really good run over there, obviously. And then now doing pretty nice here. So we're seeing the value of having a team behind you. Obviously, we've seen that so much in the last couple of years with dual mode. How differently the role of a coach has changed from kind of being a personality manager, kind of trying to just keep the team on track for practicing, to really being more involved in the competitive decisions. So you see Ruben and Javi really dialing in here. Jose VTS and Wallace on their side doing the same thing. Trying to figure out, hey, what the heck do I do now? Ruben and Javi know that with NATO out, Miner and Hog both get a nice buff on the side of Jose and Wallace. And Wallace looking at the other side of it going, hey, okay, so what do I play now? Do I play into that NATO being pulled? Do I go with something else that's not an obvious choice going into that NATO play, right? Like Miner and Hog are both obvious choices. But do you go not obvious, trying to, play against the snipe potential out of Ruben here in game number 2? So we'll get to this game in just a moment. But, man, the conversations and seeing some of the experienced high-level people in the game and how quickly they have to make these conversations happen. Let's go ahead and jump into our second game, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that music here for you. And there we go. So log out. Bait is more viable with log, fireball both out. Ruben doesn't usually play a lot of bait, and Hog immediately. So probably something with, no, it's Zappies plus Skeleton King. I said about maybe something with Fisherman. RG, we know that Ruben likes to play a lot of RG, but Zappies plus Skeleton King, maybe not. Maybe not. So Wallace does go with a pretty right down the middle choice with the Hog Rider. Could still be Royal Giant here for Ruben. And there it is. So Mortar Hog for Wallace. He does have the Ice Spirit to slow down, retarget. Some nice DPS from the guards. Of course, the Mortar, the AQ. Not playing into, is playing into the Tombstone, so there you go, the EQ immediately in reply. So lots of DPS for Wallace. He should be able to shut down a lot of these Royal Giants. And keep in mind, not a great target anywhere for the Mother Witch for Ruben. Tombstone out of cycle. And the beautiful prediction from Wallace doesn't push the Fish Boy all the way off, but enough to get a couple of key shots in there. What a nice prediction from Wallace to get just a little bit of extra value out of that Hog Rider. Didn't perfectly get the Fish Boy to go opposite lane, but still really, really nicely done. And that's just, you know that card, you haven't seen it yet, but he's playing RG. Fisherman is almost assuredly in there. Just a smart play by Wallace, and read Ruben like a book. And now the lead in the favor of the Brazilian, 28-45 to 19-36. I don't know for sure, but I feel like this does have Game 3 written all over it with what we've had so far. Wallace not able to get anything down in front of the Archer Queen. She will get eaten up. And Wallace just mortars, maybe mortared up a half second early. Nice Ice Spirit to defend the mortar, though. And now it's opposite lane play from Ruben. He's going to try to get back around and play RG into the right lane again here, I believe. As we go into sudden death overtime, big lead right now for Wallace, who was at the same World Finals where Ruben won the championship. Wallace, of course, part of that Pain Gaming squad, the upstart squad that continues to put top players. I mean, you have 3 of them here, right, in Vitor, Lucas, and Wallace. So 3 members of that Pain Gaming World Finals squad still competing at the highest level. Fireball to the right-hand lane. And, of course, Wallace was the hero for Pain in that competition, taking out Nova almost single-handedly. 7 games won in that matchup. Of course, it was Ruben in the end who had the biggest victory of the championship. Mortar high. RG does not retarget. That's a couple of big-time shots for the Royal Giant as the Mortar is distracted by the Skeleton King. Now's when you hog, right? Fisherman is distracted by a pretty beefy troop in the Valkyrie. Earthquake to clear. And Ruben just able to clog the lane up a bit too much here. Back to Royal Giant one more time. Gonna try to DPS down the RG, knowing that Fireball's coming in. Valkyrie goes high, keeps the Fisherman distracted. Royal Giant goes down, but damage done. Now it's Ruben with big dual lane pressure. 1279 on the left-hand side, though. That's the weakest tower on Wallace's lane. This hog just cannot do anything. Think about what would have happened if that Fisherman was just pushed a little bit further away. Final 30 seconds. Triple elixir flowing. The EQ and the snowballs can do a lot here. Ruben does have log, fireball, Royal Giant. And there's the log trying to get the little chip damage. Oh, did that end up going short of the tower here? That might have been short of tower. Did I just read that wrong? I think that went short. Fireball to the left-hand lane. Snowball to finish things off. Wallace picks up the win. Very, very well played on both sides. But it is Wallace who ends up on top here. And now you see Jose going to the laptop as they go back into the war room trying to figure out what do you pick here in game number 3. So we had the Electro Giant with the NATO deck for Ruben in game 1. Ruben going to the Skeleton King RG deck in game number 2. Fisherman and NATO both out. It feels like minor all the way around, but Mortar's out, right? So what's the minor deck that you would play if you played it with Mortar being out? Maybe minor wall breakers here. Ruben has already gone to his go-to in Royal Giant. E-Giant was a bit out there. A little shot of the crowd here. See if we see any faces that... It's hard to see some of these faces here in the dark, dim lights. But Royal Giant out. Ruben, of course, loves Loon, but Loon is bad in the meta right now. Did play Fireball. Archer Queen already played, though, by Wallace in that Hog Rider deck, so not a concern there for Ruben. Does Ruben go Hog Rider himself? NATO's still in, though, which creates problems for him. It's very likely going to be in the deck of Wallace here. I mean, minor wall breakers. You don't see the Magic Archer NATO variation as much. A lot of players warm up with it, but you don't see it as much in competitive. But given the options on the table for Ruben, and that he has such a proclivity towards Hog Rider, you kind of have to imagine that Tornado will make it into the deck. So here we go. Javi and Jose giving their last thoughts to their players as Ruben and Wallace gear up for game number 3. Winner makes the top 4 with a shot at our championship. Loser gets a little bit of money and had a nice time in Valencia, but they all want that trophy. They all want that money. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. It's a little quiet start here to kick things off. And so it's Pigs. So Ruben went a little bit away from just Hog Rider. Maybe going Royal Hogs because he knows that NATO's still out there. And it's looking like some variation of bridge spam for Wallace, as opposed to a minor deck. Flying Machine could be a challenge. Zappies to pick up. So, Fireball bait for Ruben. We'll see if he's running recruits here, which could make this even more annoying. And it is the Magic Archer for Wallace. Immediately poisoned off. You see Wallace playing 2 Fireball baity cards. And Wallace could be playing pigs as well. You see him playing both the Magic Archer and the Zappies, though, with Fireball out. They'll get a bit more value against Poison. Not a ton, but a bit. We have yet to see any sort of big spell out of Wallace. That's a huge stack at the bridge. Golden Knight absorbed. Wallace's Golden Knight goes bye-bye, and Ruben's goes the opposite way. NATO to pull. So drill here for Wallace probably. And no big spell. So Barb Barrel NATO. Smart call by Ruben not to go with something that was susceptible to Tornado in any sort of meaningful way. And again, no big spell for Wallace can mean challenges here. The Royal Recruits become super annoying. I mean, Flying Machine is going to be so hard to deal with for Wallace. Trying to NATO stuff together, get some Magic Archer damage on it. Zappies, but overall, that Flying Machine is just an absolute menace. So he goes with the NATO for defense here. Then that's it. Wallace knows it. That's it. GG. Absolute perfect deck picking by Ruben and Javi here. I don't know if they were putting Wallace on this deck, whatever it is, but this is, I've played this matchup as the drill player a ton of times. This is a super annoying matchup for a drill player to try to put up with, and that just, you saw, turned into an absolute nightmare on the side of Wallace. Ruben with an easy 2-0 as he'll go on to our semifinals. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can go ahead and get the bracket up here in just one moment for us to take a look at. And here we go. Let's take a look at the bracket. This is our semifinals. You will see this in the next video up in a couple of days. Morten versus Lucas on one side, Vitor versus Ruben on the other. So we could have a matchup of former teammates with Lucas and Vitor. We could have a former matchup of rivals here in Morten and Ruben, of course. It was Ruben taking down SK Gaming for that championship in 2020. So, you know, you don't know how it's gonna shake out, but either way, we're gonna have a really fun grand final, and of course, we'll see both of those semifinal matches here on this channel in our very next video. Thanks everyone here for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed me bringing the DEDsafio Royale from Valencia, Spain, from Dreamhack here to you guys on YouTube. Of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like this video, do all that sort of stuff, and I'll see you right back here for the semifinals very, very soon. As always, be excellent to each other. Mwah! Peace.